It's your boy Big Baby. Support sporting icons for latest boxing news. Cheeseburger.
So I just watched a very brief interview with Anthony Joshua on Sky Sports, and if I can extract it and put it into the description box for you guys, that's what I'll do. So have a look in the description box for the link. Now, in this interview, he was talking about his training and how he's still learning, which he is. You know, he's only had 22 fights as a pro and only had 45 fights as an amateur. But he's saying that he's always learning for each camp. So every time that he has a fight and he has a camp, he's learning from it and he's improving in each camp. So on this one, he's had a 16-week camp, which is the longest camp that he's ever had. So in this one, he's saying that he's going to be 100%. It's not going to be anything or any kind of stone unturned. But listen, that's not to say that he's not going to have some kind of niggles on fight night. Most fighters do. But for him to travel to America, listen, he's being a true heavyweight champion. The other chump from Alabama has yet to defend his title outside of America. Damn fool's a coward. Anyway, as his interview was closing, Joshua was saying that he promised to reconstruct the face of Big Baby Jarrell Miller. And he's interested to see what it is that Miller's face is going to look like by the end of the fight. So he's going in there with hurt on his mind. And a lot of this is down to Jarrell Miller selling the fight. That's exactly what it is. I mean, Miller, I don't think that Miller truly dislikes Joshua, or the things that he's saying is true. He's saying it to get under the skin of Joshua, and quite clearly it's working. But Joshua, he's got a very experienced coach in him with Rob McCracken, and a very good team with the Sims team and that around him as well, where they will keep him focused. Because if he starts losing his head and getting all erratic, that's going to play right into the hands of Big Baby Jarrell Miller. Bearing in mind that Miller has a lot of experience outside the boxing ring when it comes to fighting. Okay, so it's not really a good idea. But ultimately, Joshua is going to be the favourite for this one, that's for sure. I mean, for me, I don't understand, though, why people say that Miller, he's crap, he's trash, and he's no good, whatever. But yeah, if you was to look at some of the heavyweight fights that are currently announced, Wilder versus Brazil, Fury versus Schwartz, Joshua versus Miller, which one is the best one? It's Joshua versus Miller, isn't it? I mean, that's painfully obvious. And with Big Baby Jarrell Miller, he is ranked number 9 in the world. So again, another top 10. And Miller undefeated, he's American, Joshua's travelling. But yet people say that it's an easy fight for Anthony Joshua. So it's an easy fight to defeat an undefeated American in America who's ranked number 9 in the world. So how good is Joshua really? So those people who are saying it just to hate on Joshua, you're actually giving huge props to Anthony Joshua, as Joshua is taking on the best of the three out of Miller, Brazil, and Schwartz. Of course, Dominic Brazil, Anthony Joshua's already defeated, so Wilder's taken on his leftovers. Now, this is an interesting fight, and I don't know why people quite easily just overlook Jarrell Miller. Now, listen, I'm a Miller fan, but of course when he comes up against a Brit, and I'm sure he understands that I'm always going to be wanting the Brit to win. But ordinarily, I cheer Big Baby Jarrell Miller on. I always want him to do well. I think he's a funny guy. He's a very charismatic guy. And him as a heavyweight champion, and I said this over a year ago, that if Miller was to take on Wilder and defeat Wilder and get that belt, he would sell better in America than what Wilder does because of his personality. He's a funny guy. He's very witty. He's very sharp. Whereas Wilder is more a depressive, trying to talk himself up, which is not what Americans want to hear. They love hype, of course, but not the kind of way that Wilder's doing it. But the way that Miller does it, he can appease the audience. And he is coming across as the bad guy. He is the villain in this fight. But he's doing it deliberately to sell the fight. He wanted to fight. And he, of course, he took the fight. Listen, he's getting paid very handedly. In fact, he's getting paid $7 million compared to what Dillian Whyte was offered of $4 million. So it kind of tells you that I think Eddie Hearn really wanted Joshua to go to America. And fair play in some ways. But it's an interesting fight, and people shouldn't be overlooking Jarrell Miller. He's got the engine of a warhorse. You know, he will just keep on going, and he will just eat up shots. Of course, he's never been in the ring with anybody on a professional level as powerful as Joshua. He just hasn't, or as durable as Joshua as well. Because as Joshua said in this brief interview with Sky Sports, that he's working on not only taking the punches, but handing them out as he's taking them. So this is pretty much him saying that we're going to go to war and we're going to trade if necessary. Now, him saying how he's going to reconstruct Big Baby Jarrell Miller's face, he may actually have that on his mind. But he may also be saying that, but in reality, the tactics are go to the body, which is what any big punching heavyweight should do when you fight Miller, because he's a big guy, right? So you need to chop away at the tree. Eventually, he is going to gas. Every boxer who doesn't have a six-pack is going to gas when you start chopping away at the tree. And Miller relies on his style of coming forward like a juggernaut and just he throws more punches per round than any other heavyweight. Arguably Kaunaki and Andy Ruiz Jr., but it is literally out of those three. Joshua doesn't throw as many punches per round as Miller. But again, maybe the stats on that is based on the opposition. Miller's opposition, for his stage in his career, isn't too bad. I mean, he got a win over Duapa. I think that was in his 22nd fight, I think it was. It took Wilder 35 fights to fight him. Okay, and he took on Gerald Washington again in his 22nd fight or 21st, whatever it was. Again, Wilder, that was his 37th fight. So, and Marius Wack, a very tall, durable, very, very durable opponent. Of course, Marius Wack did get smoothed out by Mike Bacoli the past weekend. But for his stage of his career, bearing in mind that boxing isn't his background, kickboxing is his background. Much like with Dillian Whyte, his background is kickboxing. So with the handful of fights that Miller's had, he has done very well and his resume is pretty good. And he's arguably number 2 in America as far as heavyweights go. So for everybody who is pouring cold water on this fight, saying how Joshua is got like a real easy fight, I think these people have another agenda. Some people just don't like Joshua. I mean, for fighters to say it, that's one thing. Okay, of course, it's rivalry, whether they're British, whether they're not. It's rivalry. If Tyson Fury said it, Dillian Whyte said it, or Joe Joyce said it. Listen, again, a lot of that is down to rivalry. But Miller is a decent opponent. He really is. And for those who say that Joshua's going to walk through him, and you're meaning it to criticise Joshua, then in fact, you're actually praising him, saying how good Joshua actually is. Anyway, as I said, if I can pin it to the description box, I shall do that for you. So go give it a watch for yourself if you haven't watched it already. So we're only, 6 weeks away now for the fight. So yeah, it won't be long. And I believe for the last 4 weeks of this camp, Joshua will be going to Florida, so I hear. So yeah. Anyway, drop your thoughts below about it. Do you think that Anthony Joshua will reconstruct the face of Big Baby Jarrell Miller? How do you rate this fight? Do you think that Miller is going to give Joshua a lot more problems than maybe people think? As Joshua quite plainly says, and he's absolutely right, only 22 fights in as a pro, he's not the finished article. He just isn't. Okay? Whereas Wilder, he's at, 41 fights now? He's not even on the standard of Joshua. Yeah, he only had 8 amateur fights less than Joshua. So that tells its whole new story. But for me, anyway, I mean, do you think that he's going to reconstruct the face of Miller? If it was me, I would probably say no. I think he's probably going to try and chop the tree down. I think he's going to try and puncture his lungs or something. But he is going to get angry, and hopefully Rob McCracken will keep him in check. He'll keep him focused, because he does need to be focused, because Miller is pretty handy. He's very decent with the uppercut and the overhand rights. So he does need to be careful of those. Whereas Miller, not the biggest puncher in the world, but he's still a heavyweight. When it hits you, he could smoke your boots. So Joshua does need to be careful on this one. I know we called Miller the worst heavyweight out there right now. Again, it's all trash talk. That's all it is. But maybe Joshua is rattled, as in emotionally, not because he's scared of Miller, not at all. If he was, he wouldn't have given Miller a title shot. But I think that this is a much better fight than what a lot of people are saying. But will he reconstruct his face? I don't know. For me personally, I don't think so. I don't think he's going to go headhunting in this fight. I think he's going to go body hunting. Anyway, I mean, that's my thoughts on it all. Of course, you drop me yours in the comment section below. Click the thumbs up to this video and, of course, subscribe. Catch you all on the next one.